All right, it is Wednesday, my dudes, and I'm already knocking over Gunpla. I had my opening speech ready, and I'm like knocking over everything on my desk. What's up, everybody? Happy Wednesday to you. Hope you all are having a good week so far. Welcome to Midnight Hatter Live, the weekly variety show where we talk Gundam gaming and all that good stuff. I am Steven, your host, and joining me, as always, is the old type Adam Blue? No,
Mm.
we have new type Adam Blue today.
No, I like being considered an old type. I think that's a distinguishing feature of, where I'm at in my life. But no, but really, it's kind of funny 'cause sometimes I'm reminded, you know, I am old, kind of, but I don't always appear, and I was doing something with the Bandai group the other day, and we were all joking and like, "How old do you guys think I am?" I'm older than you think, and someone jokes, "Yeah, 40." And I'm like, "Yeah, this year, I will be 40."
Actually, that's
We're like, "What?"
yeah,
It's like,
that I definitely run into that a lot on the Discord.
but
It's
but there is
like,
something to it, and I think it's generational, right? Where we appear younger,
yeah,
but I
for
think
sure.
it's because just after each generation, there's like iterations of domestication that lessens the stress put on the body.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I go through like high school yearbooks from like the 50s, and oh man, these kids look like beaten and battered. Maybe it's all the cigarettes. I don't know, but
And
yeah.
that's
I
why
mean, what's that?
and that's why I think it's interesting when we look at Gundam, not they were thinking about this, but, like, sometimes where the way a character is drawn, it's like, "Well, that's not their age." But then sometimes I think, well, we don't know how different generations would look in the future,
Yeah,
and so
that's a very good point. I think I'm gonna have to bring that up on an issue of dissecting
Nice.
Gundam, because that's a very good point. Um, so for the supporters, obviously, this week's episode of Dissecting Gundam is available on Patreon, locals, all that good stuff. The public release will be on Friday, so hope you guys are looking forward to that. I thought it was fun.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of what I would say some cultural lost in translation stuff. We get into some dicey territory on it, so I'm excited for to hear people's um reaction to it.
And,
Um,
I have an idea too, and again, this is me, like, asking you to make content, but I think it would be cool if you did a Dissecting Gundam on that first issue or volume or whatever of Zeta Revive,
oh
or
yeah,
whatever it's called, because it's the same beginning, but it's in different sequences. So and remember I was telling you, it makes it
yeah.
almost seem like Camille that has less character. And it was they tried to, like, hide the little things he did. So, that might be I would for you to dissect that, I think would be very cool.
That would be a fun one. Yeah, and I'd love to have some guests on Dissecting Gundam too, to get some
Oh,
alternate interpretations and perspectives there. But here, look, I'm being rude here. Obviously, we have a great crowd in the chat today. We've got
oh,
Matt
yeah.
Matt Mad Dog Wheaton, we've got Zionic Shadow, we've got Shirt Lad, Dan Vince, Liz Lestrade. Did I miss anybody? Zionic Shadow? Did I say Zionic Shadow?
Let's see.
Thank you guys for keeping the chat lively. Yeah, it seems like despite the fact that Gundam fans tend to be trending younger, um, all of us seem to be all pushing 40.
Yeah, I know, it's very interesting.
So yeah, we've got the gang of boomers here. So
Boomer gang.
boomer gang.
I don't
Oh,
know.
and Pyro just arrived. Good to see you, buddy.
So
So yeah, this week, we did some fun stuff. We had on the supporter stream yesterday, I wired up a old HGUC Cubile with some EL wire, which is pretty cool. Check out
yeah.
the Discord or my Instagram if you want to see photos of how that turned out. It was pretty sweet, and I only burned myself once on these soldering irons, so I count it as a win. Um, but yeah, so this is actually a topic that came up several times, I think, on Patreon questions for Gundam Explained, and people have brought it up in chat here on my channel. Is hey, Adam, Steven, if you could make a Gundam game, what would it be like? What's the sort of angle you would take with it? And I think you and I both agree that that we I don't want to use the term open world because
Right.
that kind of has its own connotation to it. And you and I have talked about open worlds and how we kind of don't necessarily think that they exist. But I think non-linear would be a fair way to characterize
Yeah.
the type of game that we wanted to make that was a
Yeah.
Gundam game, because most of the games are obviously mission based. They're very
Yeah.
quick, or you have PvP games like Gundam Battle Operation.
Yeah.
Um, so really, this is an exercise in not making a game like, for public release or anything or public consumption. Maybe it's just like a minimum viable product that we can show Bandai maybe and say, hey, this
Yeah.
is our idea for what a Gundam game could be. So I've got some prototypes here that I'm excited to show you guys. This is going to be the first time Adam sees them too, so this is like, hopefully kind of we're not going to give away everything that we've been talking about in private, but hopefully kind of illustrate his vision in 3D form.
Yeah, because I talked about this stuff a lot because it comes from me loving video games, and because
Yes.
Steven does too, it makes it kind of an easy conversation to have. And I wrote up my treatment of what I think how the game would start and how the mechanics would be. And then I hadn't seen what Steven has come up with, but when we were testing at the beginning, I saw him switch scenes and I saw something and I was like, that looked cool. So
It's like that's we're getting close, yeah, for sure. And I think we might be able to nail down one of the mechanics here on stream today. But for
wow.
now, we're just going to kind of show some visuals, show how things might work, and probably you guys can laugh at how janky the prototype is. So, without any further gilding of the lily, let's hop over into our screen share view where I've got Unity open. I've got it open on my laptop because the last time I tried to run Unity while I was streaming, my house caught fire. So let's hop into it here, and I'll show you guys what we've got so far. Obviously, we have a little GM character here. I'm going to blow up our scene view. So we've got a camera that we can move around with. We've got this environment that we've created.
Wow.
Um, and then we've got our GM that can run around and move across the moon. I think that honestly this is probably moving a little fast for my taste. So we're gonna definitely drop the base speed.
Oh
Um,
yeah, I wonder if we do it from a baseline of Earth gravity, no gravity, moon gravity.
that would be a good idea. And I
Yeah.
think that, obviously we can tap into the to the max speed of the player object and tweak that. There's another thing, obviously, jump strength. Oh, why is my GM not jumping? There he goes. So
Wow.
like, we have a minor jump ability, which I have to say that's something that I feel like is missing from GBO2. Like, I think that the jump is way like you have to overcharge it in order to do stuff. Um, but that's just a minor gripe on my part. I kind of wish that there was a faster jump like this one. Now, obviously, there are some issues with the animation. We've got some clipping going on that we need to fix, and we're gonna probably try and address that in the character model. Some other things that this character controller can also do is enter a over-the-shoulder aim mode.
Oh,
Um,
that's cool.
we probably need to raise it up a little bit from cockpit level to head level, and tweak the crosshair a little bit. But so we've got that. We've got the ability to move, jump, and then we also have a sprint that again is a little too fast, but I really like the camera effect, the way it pulls
Yeah,
out.
I do too.
So this is a really fun character controller that we're using, and I
Wow.
think that if we tweak a few things, we can make this work. Um, let's see. Yeah, T-Pose GM for the win. So we're gonna hop into Blender here. Part of the problem that we're having is that animation clipping, and part of what's causing that is the fact that, you know, this skeleton, this rig that I have created here, this is like a default rig that comes with Blender. I didn't make this one, so it has a bunch of bones in here that we don't necessarily need. and the like shoulder joints, for instance, are tied to like this shoulder bone, but obviously since it's not there, it kind of has a wonky behavior when it's mapped to a humanoid animation. But um this isn't necessarily what we would what we would really want anyway, right? Because
Right.
one of the things that that Adam brought up was the ability to do field repairs. And field repairs obviously would involve harvesting parts from maybe downed enemies or downed allies for that matter.
Yep.
So for instance, you might not necessarily even have the pauldrons. You might be running around with just like bare shoulder joints. Um, and so what I think we're going to end up doing is we are going to have the rig, the skeleton, be it's going to be the player object. And then we're going to create basically scriptable objects that plug in the various limbs that you can attach. And that way, you know, we can map them to the skeleton and have them operate like that independently so that we're not like importing an entire character every time we change something out.
Yeah, that's a good way, I guess, from a development point to look at it, because really the idea would be that mechanics would be what you would be doing to the suit throughout the game. So being able to, I think in the, I wrote up an idea of the GM, for instance, picking up a Zaku shield shoulder and plugging it
Yes.
in. So yeah, to have the models built for that. And then, the other thing too is I wonder if you've thought of this already in the past, but like skirt armor, as there's walking in physics, I'm sure that's the hardest thing.
I am glad that you brought that up because one of the things that I would like to do is so we already have I've isolated each part of the skirt as its own 3D object. And I have a solution that is built into Unity that it's typically used for hair physics, but what we're going to do is we're going to use it for the skirts, for the backpacks, and probably the shoulder armor as well. And basically all it does is use native like colliders so that like if something bumps into the skirt will move and we don't have to animate that manually, which anything that we don't
That's
have to
cool.
do manually
Yeah.
is is going to be a huge asset to us. So, let's go ahead and like I said, because I'm not a fan of this particular rig, we're just going to delete it and we're going to make our own. Oh, I forgot that that rig was scaling this guy down. Um, and this is a very low poly model of a GM. In case you guys can't tell, this is what it looks like without its
No,
texture. It's
the textures
very
really add
boxy.
to it then.
But so the texture does a lot of the work here, and
Yeah.
that's going to be good because, you know, like I said, if we're going to be loading in lots of individual assets to make up the skeleton, we don't want to be pulling in like high res models. So whatever we can get the textures to do for us, we're going to take advantage of that. So as far as our armature goes, let's start adding some bones, and we're going to build up a fresh skeleton. Um, One of the first things I think we need to do is actually get the skeleton to show in front. There we go.
Oh, and Matt Wheaton saying that Gundam you see on the PS3 was your favorite Gundam game by far. I'll have to finish it. I had started it, and
Yeah,
it is from software. Um, so that would be my jam.
I was gonna
It's
say
just
we are fans of From Software here.
it's just the when it comes to it not being translated and the buttons being swapped, like I can get over that, but it takes me a second.
Agreed. You know, it's like for as much as you and I both enjoy both Senki 0081 and Gundam side stories, it's like, man, I really wish that I could like enjoy the story.
Yeah, I know. And it's funny because Operation Troy, which was a 360 exclusive, I found a working ROM, even though I have it, I need either a dev kit 360 or a modded 360, Japanese 360. But anyway, I was able to play Operation Troy on PC. It's pretty interesting. I haven't gone through it yet to really have a good take on it, but it's just interesting how it starts off. You're just infantry, and then later in
Yeah.
the battle, a Zaku lands, like in the distance, but it's not really in the distance. It's near you, and it's freaky and awesome. Like whether the game was good or not, did good or not, doesn't matter. The fact that they attempted that idea,
Yeah.
it's pretty interesting.
For sure. I mean, and that's I think that that's really all we're talking about here is like how to capture the authentic Gundam
You know,
experience. And I think that, most video games kind of fall short, but
yeah.
I guess that would only be um most Gundam video games, right? Because I think we would agree that like there are some video games out there. A lot of people always bring up like Titanfall
Oh yeah.
that that capture the Gundam experience without the Gundam IP attached to it.
And for me, Lost Planet, and this is, before I even got into Gundam, Lost Planet was everything I wanted in a mech game. And the
Same here.
sequel, even though the sequel is good too, but it had something badass where if you happen to be playing the late missions co-op, you could actually combine the mechs. With
That's
2 players can combine the mechs and have like a badass battleship in space.
that was
And
so awesome.
yeah, that makes me wanna play it. I think I own it on 360 and PC. It makes me wanna play it again and do that.
If you still have your 360, sir, I still
Oh,
have mine on 360. So
okay.
maybe we'll have to do some Lost Planet streams and
I think so. I think we need to recreate that,
build the
space
hype
battle where the
around it.
mechs can combine. That would be
Um, so this is where I think no, you know what? It's not going to get tricky because, like I mentioned, I am not going to bother. I'm not going to bother mapping the shoulder, or I shouldn't say the shoulder. I'm not going to bother mapping the pauldron, so the shoulder armor, to a bone because we are going to be using that Unity plugin that that manipulates
physics.
hair physics, and we're going to be
Oh,
using that to control the pauldron's animation. Because
great idea.
the problem is, and I don't want to have to like animate a bunch of mobile suit animations from scratch and have to factor in things like skirt armor and what about its wings and backpack stuff.
Yeah.
I want to be able to just plug and play with humanoid animations, which I have hundreds, probably thousands of that we can play with, and they can be mapped to every mobile suit. um so that said, the thing about if we were to map that shoulder armor to a bone, if we map it to the same bone that we have attached to our to like the bicep, the problem is then that shoulder armor is going to come up and clip into the torso.
Yeah.
But we really only want it to rotate on one axis because mobile suit arms, they typically will, so like if the pauldron is like this, it will operate like this without moving, and then if you turn or like if the arm raises up, then it will rotate. As
Yeah.
opposed to rotating on all three axes. I hope that
That
makes
makes
sense. I'm not.
Yeah, that does. I mean, I think about that when I'm posing.
Yeah,
But you know
exactly.
what? A lot of this is related, yeah, because I'm thinking, when it comes to Gunpla or action figure poses, there's sort of this way of doing it where the chin is down, the chest is puffed out, the legs are sort of at an angle where the feet aren't forward. And, that's kind of like the heroic pose you would do with an action figure.
Yeah,
But there's something always to keep in mind too when it comes to Gundam is these are first and foremost mechs. So a lot of times a mech isn't going to be standing in a heroic pose.
very
So I think
true.
that's something to keep in mind as we are coming up with and designing animations and stuff. We want to stick to, and it's like how you're explaining the shoulder part. It's like making it seem like it was this mech and not just a character
Right.
animation that we're just plugging in. Because there's a little bit of plugging it in, and then there's a little bit of tweaking it. Uh, like the running animation, my thought would be make it where there's not an animation, but it's almost like, it's
Oh,
boosting.
yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And see, that's something that's easy to map once you have that humanoid skeleton, like you can swap out any number of animations. In fact, we can probably
Cool.
do that now. One of the things that I
Wow.
think is hurting this particular prototype is the fact that those humanoid animations are coming from like a human that's kind of standing straight up. Um, but if we were to import some animations, and I think we'll do that here after I fix this rig, if we import some animations where it's like more of an action stance that the legs are spread apart, we're not getting the knees clipping together as much.
Mhm.
I think that it's going to make a lot. It's going to go a long way to selling that to selling that image.
That's cool.
So this is obviously some standard fare when it comes to creating these armatures. So I'm gonna go through and name them because it'll be easier to map them to the various body parts when they are named. Um, so we've got our pelvis. This would be our waist. And we've got the chest and the head. We've got our bicep dot L. This is a neat thing about Blender is if you name things in a very particular way, you can get things to automate for you. So for instance, if we do upper leg dot L, lower leg dot L, and foot dot L. So we've named half of our rig here, and we're just going to select all of that and symmetrize,
Dang.
symmetry.
I've never used the word before, but that sounded right.
Yeah, well, we're gonna make it symmetrical. And so basically all it did was it made copies of everything on the right side of the x-axis, and it gave them all the appropriate names: upper leg right, upper leg, lower leg right, etc. Um,
Impressive.
so yeah, cuts our modeling time in half.
Wow.
We are going to make sure to select everything and parent it to the skeleton with empty envelope groups. I've done a previously, if you look back at my catalog of YouTube videos, I've done a video about how to do all of this because it's something that took me a while to figure out myself. Um, but it makes life very easy, um, as far as getting robot movements correct, because it's very easy to make them look too organic. And
Mm.
by doing it this way, you end up getting much more, robotic movements. This would
Yeah, Matt
be,
Wheaton bringing up Sniper Elite. That's actually a big influence for me because while I consider it a double A game, it's not like triple A complete polish. They figured out the mechanic loop to make the game fun and engaging each time you play, and it's having a huge battlefield that it's open mission. I guess as it go, it's like you have a set of missions. You can go about it any way you want, and you can do it one way or another, or come back and revisit. And that's, kind of what I want. Like, for like the Code Fairy games,
yeah.
like if they made those levels just bigger and then you can go back, like if they combined missions into one, like there was some where you had to like watch a Zaku tank, make sure it didn't get escort a Zaku tank around so it doesn't get blown up. If that also was the same mission that also had where you had to blow up a big tray or some other, like if they can combine those into one world and you can go in and out of, um, and especially adding, like, I think GBO2, and that's what Code Fairy has a good weapons parts sort of system, but I feel like you could build one that's completely different and it's uh, more visual in terms of you're, like, seeing the things that you're putting on or something, I don't know.
Yeah, that's always a gripe with me when it comes to, well, any video game really. When you equip parts, and this is usually guilty of like RPGs. Like RPGs, you'll typically like, okay, I'm gonna equip all of these things to my armor to make it souped up and powerful. But you don't see any like visual representation that illustrates that. It's just like just numbers. Um, you know, and maybe I'm just spoiled from from being a I guess whatever current gen gamer, but I don't
No,
know.
that's
I feel like I'm always willing to sacrifice like graphical fidelity for game features,
yeah, 100%.
and and,
And
and I would say that that's more of a game feature.
yeah, and it's funny because what you're describing, sometimes the opposite happens where you've gotten these armor pieces that are way better to use, but you don't wanna change your look.
Yeah,
You know? And
that's
but
right.
some games then offer the thing where you're then applying stats from one armor part to another, so you retain the visual, of that, but you get the stats. Um, and I could see that working in a way to where, this idea for a Gundam game, maybe there's these passive abilities that don't really do anything to the look, like faster movement or something, but then you can also have something where I need more shielding, so you literally need more shields. It's
Yeah,
not just gonna be like, "Okay, this unit now has more shields." Um,
and
little things like that. Like, I feel like there's a way you can work those elements together.
yeah, I think double O 81 kind of
Yeah,
toys with that a little bit
that's right.
because obviously you have some of the upgrades that you equip where it's like, if you equip the cannon to a Zaku, all of a sudden it's no longer a Zaku, it's a Zaku cannon. It's like that is a permanent upgrade compared to like, your thruster +5, you know.
But that would be pretty cool if in this game, we have a main concept of the gameplay loop, but there's a lot of things we'd wanna add to it, like, what if you start with this GM and then you have modified it where, yeah, maybe you found a cannon, you put it on the shoulder, now it's a GM cannon, and then you can then keep that in your hangar, and then you come across another frame. It could be a GM or a Gundam, and then you're then building. So it's almost in a way how the SD generation games work, where you use by having the different parts, you can then build a specific unit type. But then the idea is you lock it, and it's like, okay, I have this unit. Anytime I find a hangar, I can choose a different mobile suit to jump into.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think so to bring back a this is a callback I think to a stream 2 weeks ago when I think it was Ultronomus that brought up the old Greek myth about like the ship that if you've replaced so many parts on the ship, is it still the same ship?
oh yeah,
Um, so do you think unlike New Gundam Breaker, do you think that there should be a core module of each mobile suit that makes it that mobile suit? So, like, for instance, if you replace the torso, is it no longer a GM, but anything else is fair game? Or, where do you draw the line there?
that's a good point. I would start with whatever's canon that they've had of a frame type that has had additions on it, and then it's become this other unit. You know what I mean? And then maybe the game only has combinations of things that can exist because they're adaptable with each other, or we have the option to add things together that wouldn't necessarily work, and so it becomes a new thing. But yeah, I don't know where that line would be drawn then. Is it the frame? Because I guess it's with the Mark II, and around that time too, wasn't Xeon doing the same thing where they were trying to create mobile suits that, yeah, that had modular pieces pretty much.
Right, the universal maintenance program.
Yeah. So it could be where it's, yeah, it's a mix of yeah, it depends. Some maybe like a GM probably can only have so many different forms because it is kind of earlier stuff that since then the later ones might not combine with its parts as much. Like the idea is like let's say this game went into like 86 or something, and then you would have mobile suits that could probably have way more variations than the early suits. That could be part of the gimmick too.
Yeah, agreed. I think that that's it will, and those are all things that we can build in. Like I mentioned, if each individual part is a scriptable object, we can create tags based around that where it's like, so these parts, these like 0086 parts are compatible with like 0083 going forward. So you can't, so even if you, so let's say you're piloting a GM and you shoot down a Hyzak, you can't take a Hyzak arm and snap it on. It's like it
Yeah.
only works one way.
Yeah, it would be one of those things where it's like, okay, here's a whole other suit. I would then add this to my hanger. So then you have that way you have multiple mobile suits that you can modify into whatever you want. Where you're eventually creating your whole and that might help that yeah, and again, it reminds me of SD generation in a way. It's like it could be where you want a certain suit in this game, so you would seek out the base body. And let's say you just didn't you happen to not have a GM, but the base is a GM. You would then go hunt that down and then hunt for the parts to get to build, yeah, a mobile suit.
Yeah.
And that'd be fun. And it adds all the different layers that of what makes Gundam fun, like the Gunpla building part. For something like New Gundam Breaker, that game goes too far away from being a video game into being like it's still a video game, but it's about Gunpla parts.
Yeah.
Whereas I like the other direction where no, this is in canon, the in universe. The parts are part of the fact that there are multiple suits with multiple parts that could be customized, and so it's weird how I feel like that's a very thin line when with the Gunpla and the Gundam, the video games, um, and modifying. Very thin line.
Yeah, it's you always want, oh, whoops. You always want some level of customization, but yeah, when you get into that Gundam Breaker territory, then it's not quite a Gundam story. It's a
Yeah, it's
Gundam
just more
Breaker
about the
story.
collecting and building,
So, yeah, while we've been chatting, I obviously rebuilt our rig here. Um, looks like I messed something up with these shoulders. Maybe I didn't map
But,
them correctly.
I mean, but I it's kind of a neat idea. I like the idea of certain parts of a giant mechanical robot kind of moving to its own momentum based on you know what I mean? Like, I
Yeah.
almost feel that from the shoulders even though they're upside down, but that's like I could I can kinda see where this could benefit the overall look of these moving mechs.
Yeah, I think that there's probably something to be said for that level of kind of, I don't want to say like clunkiness or
Yeah, there's a word for it. I don't know how to explain it either. It's yeah, the of all
so
the parts and how they interact with each other,
so we
giant metal pieces.
are going to fix up these shoulders and then see how it looks, and if it looks correct now, then we can start talking about that bone plugin that will allow us to um, manipulate. There we go. So that's
Uh,
what we're looking for. Where so like now,
yeah.
yes, the shoulders are moving with the mech, but like obviously they're kind of moving independently.
Yeah.
um, so what we're gonna do is that plugin is actually going to control their movement instead of the animator controlling their movement.
Cool. And then I guess another thing would be, now this would be later, and I'm sure there's a plugin for this, but to add like a dust effect for every time the foot lands on the
Oh
ground, just to
yes.
give that heft of metal like slamming down on the ground.
Yeah. I mean, we're definitely going to want some particle effects, uh, then sound effects. Obviously, we're gonna
Yeah.
have to um, sound effects. We're gonna have to apply as well. Sound is interesting in video games because it's always like the last thing that I tend to work on.
Hmm.
Um, uh-oh, do I need to sign in here? Let's refresh here.
That's interesting because sometimes for me, music is the first thing that, like, if I'm editing a video, like, I'll think, like, that music I now have for the channel, like, I'll think of the music as I'm making my pictures or the videos because it's like it helps me visualize the action so that I'm not like just cutting something, being like, how can I edit this? And then what would it sound like? It's like I'm almost creating it in my head first. But a lot of times based on music, like even it's weird how much music is a big deal to me, it seems. Because a lot of times I feel like music dictates the feeling of anything I'm getting involved in.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, I think that, and you and I have talked about like even just creating content for YouTube. It's like, audio's king. It's more important
yeah.
than the visuals, to be honest with
Yeah.
you.
How often is someone watching a podcast muted?
Yeah,
But how often is someone listening to a podcast and not watching it? Like,
that's a very good.
yeah,
I never thought of that example. That's kind of says it all.
yeah.
All right. So we have our easy soft bone here, which, and I hope that you approve of this lunar surface
Oh, yeah.
terrain that we have going on so far. Obviously, we need to populate it with some downed Zaku's, maybe some that'll probably be the next thing we work on is a little bit of enemy AI and having some Zaku's chase you down, that sort of thing.
Nice.
Um, so
Oh, I love the idea of you see the Zaku corpse laying on the ground, and then as you get closer, you just hear and see the eye just activate, and then it slowly gets up. Oh, I like that would be awesome.
Yeah, and so I mean, basically, you and I have talked about kind of the way that this would come together is, and like you said, we can go in and select this individual shoulder armor and just disable it, and then that way, when the player starts up, we have our somewhat battle damaged GM, charging into the battlefield, and until we would find that armor piece that clips on there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that looks really cool.
And of course, obviously, we would want to mess with different textures too. That obviously we have our default GM texture, but for instance, if we wanted to create some battle damage textures, we can pull
Mhm.
pull up these texture files in Photoshop um and like add some dirt and some grime to them. Um, And then another thing that I think we haven't even touched on yet would be like, for instance, what if we, oh, you know what? I think we can do this a better way. We're going to take our mobile suit material here, lock that property. Oh, come on.
Hey, Shy Guy OC. Hey, True Anonymous. Glad you could join us.
If we wanted our Xeon captured GM,
Oh,
we can apply that. I think in this same folder we also have um, the White Dingo colorways. For
oh,
those of you Rise from the Ashes fans,
that's cool.
I'm not even sure what this dark green. Um, that's kind of a cool alternate colorway.
Yeah. I want to say that looks like a specific one. I don't know.
Yeah. It might actually be kind of cool to recreate the what is it? What is the GM called from Battle Alliance that they just
Oh,
put in?
Gather Road or
Yeah, the
something like
Gather
that?
Road. What if we
Yeah.
create the Gather Road colorway?
Yeah. That's right. Because yeah, you have to, like, do so much. Wait, they added it in GBO2, and I think you have to you, like, buy a pack, and it comes in that
Yeah,
pack or
that
something.
was a shame. I wish that they had done something a little bit I don't know, a little cooler, because like
For free.
yeah, yeah,
Just
make
to
make it
promote
free
the
for people
game.
that
Yeah. Oh,
uh
yeah, people that had the game, yeah. That would've been
exactly.
good.
I think that would have been a much cooler way to tie it in together. So let's see.
Oh, sure lad's saying the GM Ayug pre-refurbishment colors. That GM we saw that had, like, the green,
Oh.
I think that's yeah, Ayug related in some way, or, like, it was, yeah, Federation, but I don't know, but something, yeah.
Um so here are some animation packs that I've got. Obviously a lot of free animation packs that I've downloaded from the Unity Asset Store. Um, this one might be an interesting one to go with. Let's import these guys because I think that this might help again sell that giant robot feel. Um, let's see if the rig is humanoid, so we can actually leverage
Drag and drop?
that. What's that?
Is that easy as drag and drop?
Oh yeah.
That's crazy.
So what we're going to do is pull up our animator, select the player animator here, go into our locomotion, and we're going to put the run animations into the running, sprinting, and we'll use this walk animation for the jogging and walking. And I think that this is going to be pretty cool looking. The other thing that I think we needed to do, and you and I mentioned this earlier, is currently the walk speed is set to 0.1. Let's set it to 0.05. So we're going to cut that in half. We're going to set the run speed to 0.2. Sprint speed, we will cut that down to 0.4. And I think that looks good. Yeah, we'll see how that looks.
Okay.
Any minute now, it's gonna. Whoa, what happened here? There we go.
Oh,
For some
okay.
reason, it wasn't in the game view. All right, so our idle animation. Whoa. Well, this isn't good. We've got our character model is stuck here.
Just turning on an axis.
Yeah.
Axis? Did I just trigger the GM?
There. Yeah, exactly. Let's try that again and see. It might be a result of root motion. There we go. Man, maybe this is too slow, but
Too slow, but I love, like,
there's a lot more character going
yeah,
on here.
yeah,
And especially like if this is supposed to be like the lunar surface, this definitely
right. It would be, yeah, less of an effect.
So yeah,
It still looks cool.
yeah. So I mean, and that's the difference that just using a different animation preset can make. Um and that's just a random little sample pack. We can obviously tinker with alternatives there. But yeah, like I said, I think that this thing will come together pretty nicely
Yeah.
as we continue messing with it. Uh, Hopefully this afternoon I can get to adding in those the soft bones that that will trigger our skirt and shoulder animations. I do want to create out those scriptable objects that will allow us to kind of basically. Let me see if I can kind of show off how that will work. So like none of these objects, which this is all of the parts that make up the mobile suit. All of
Mm,
this stuff will be each individual will be a scriptable object, and then they will attach to the various bones that make up the skeleton, since they're two different things.
wow. That it's fascinating how complex that all, I guess, seems, and as you get into it, it might not be as complex, but, like, it might be intuitive, but on the surface, like, there's a lot involved if you wanna do it right.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that that's ideally you and I do want to do it right.
Yeah. Yeah, and also it's like, part of me is like, I don't think we can. I don't think we should make an entire game. Really, the idea is there's a certain Gundam game we want to exist. We
Yeah.
don't want to have to make it, but if we have to make a proof of concept, you know, to show Bandai and be like, look, this, and then maybe nothing comes of it, and it's like, okay, we'll create our own IP and
Yeah,
then make a fully fledged mech combat game in the way that hasn't existed yet. Yeah.
exactly. Something that's not quite like you said, maybe recapture some of that magic of Lost Planet.
Yeah, exactly. The feeling of this mech, having a mech, like, and all the things that come with that, you know? And, sometimes I wonder, do you make the controls then like you're operating a mech, or do you make the controls like a standard open world game? You know, because sometimes if you're, like, mashing a button, what if that is you're trying to do something in the mech or
Yeah,
something? I don't know.
like some kind of cockpit operations.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
obviously, we could go the full Steel Battalion route and create
I'll
like a
have
custom
Yeah,
controller. Although I think in Japan they do have like those pod. There's like that
yeah,
pod game where you can
yeah.
sit in a mobile suit, but I don't know if we're gonna go that far. Considering that even just messing around with LED lights, I burn myself and create like bad circuits. I don't know if I'm up to the level of creating a controller from scratch.
Yeah, I mean, it would be cool to do though. In Shy Guy saying, "Is there a story mode in the works?" Well, there is. The idea of this is it takes place during the 1 Year War, and so the story is almost open ended because it's how your character would survive in it. That's kind of the basis for the game, and it uses the world, the physics. You can go anywhere. You're just trying to survive while this 1 year war is happening. And I don't know. It could be that you end up where you choose what side you want to be on. I don't know.
I mean,
That's
that'd be
the
pretty cool.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, it maybe even it's one of those things where your faction isn't even necessarily determined for you at the start of the game. Like if you're just thrown into it and like yeah, you're in a GM, but we don't give the pilot an identity. We don't, it's just like
Wow.
maybe he found the GM. Like
Something just popped into my head. What if the GM was on loan and it's this neutral base on the moon and it's just a security GM, and there happens to be a Xeon Earth Federation fight happening there and neither side cares about the people at the facility. So for that guy, he's just like, I
yeah, you're
why are these people fighting us? I got to get out of
you're
here. I don't know.
Joe
That's
Blow engineer. Like
Yeah. Yeah. That's kind of cool,
yeah, there
actually.
you go. I mean, isn't that basically Camille's story?
Yeah. Yeah, there you go. That is
um,
Camille's story.
all we need is an NPC to call the player a girl, and
Yeah,
you're off to the races.
exactly.
So yeah, hopefully you guys kind of dig this little prototype that we've got going, and I think that we've made some improvements already to just the animation skeleton and the overall look of it. Um, there's a ton of work to be done, obviously, but I think that there's definitely potential here to make something, just like a little playable trailer, basically.
Well, it's funny because, like, I remember, was it 1998, 1999 when they first showed off Halo? It looked just like what you're showing me. So, like, it's funny how nowadays quickly people have the opportunity to make these demo things.
Yeah,
And if you think about it, people that achieved that back in the day went on to make games. And so I think it's one of those things where if a publisher is seeing, people that are really spending their time making these things, like, they could be full games. And a
yeah,
lot of times you're going to get the more interesting, unique games from those types of people that are on their free time learning the systems, and they can try to make things out of it.
exactly. I mean, I think that you look at a lot of the really popular games right now, aside from, your big AAA games, but like, fun little indie games, things like, Fall Guys and like
Yep.
Rocket League. Those games started with an idea of like, hey, we just want to play with, the physics of knocking a ball around with a car.
Yeah. And
Eh,
it's funny, all those games work, like Fortnite, Roblox, and these games have modes in them where you can build stuff. The new Zelda. In fact, I heard
yeah.
something the other day that I didn't know, and maybe I forgot. When they were making Breath of the Wild, during development, they decided they wanted to completely change the game to make it like they accidentally discovered how the game should be made, and they redid Breath of the Wild to be what it is now. I didn't know about that. Did
I have not heard that,
Okay.
but I wouldn't be surprised by it
Yeah.
because that's typically like Nintendo's MO. Is it's like
Right.
they
Build
kind of
systems.
chase inspiration when
Yeah.
it's like, well, we're gonna build a character controller, and I think that in particular, like the story of how they created Mario Odyssey was, it was like, we're just gonna do everything based around the mechanic of this hat, right? And
Oh, yeah.
like
Yeah.
um and the game itself would be fun to play without any of the platforming puzzles, without any of the enemies, like just running around, bouncing off the walls and throwing your hat and jumping on the hat and stuff like that. They're like, this by itself is fun. So
Yeah.
then we start adding in the layering in the challenges and the quests and the collectibles, and then that's where it becomes, a full-fledged game. And so I think, we're probably going to get to that moment in making this little demo. Is it's like, we have an idea in our heads of like what we want this to be, and I think that as we sort of start tinkering with the physics and playing with some of the interactions that we can get, we might discover like, oh, this is the game we were making all along.
Yeah. We could completely change it, yeah. You
Yeah.
never know what we could find, yeah. Cool stuff.
But yeah, so that's what we've got going on. Like I said, I don't want to bore you guys too much with the gritty details, but hopefully you enjoyed this little peek at the prototype stage. It's always nicer when it's like something that's like textured and you have like an
Yeah.
environment. Nobody likes to I watch countless Unity tutorials, and it's always like, look at this capsule like moving around on a white background, like just burp, burp. Look, I made a character controller, it jumps, and it's like, that doesn't tell me anything. It's like, I need to see the GM walking on the moon.
Yeah, even for people that aren't deep into the technical aspect of the game making, seeing what I just saw was, like, exciting.
Yeah,
It's like I just wanna load it up so I can run around as what we're building, which is feeling like a mech, in the world, so, yeah,
yeah.
cool stuff.
But so that's all I've got today, and yeah, man, I think that we've got some potential here, and I think
Yes.
that after the stream's over, Adam and I are probably going to chat for like an hour about
Yeah.
about next steps.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, thank you guys so much for hanging out, keeping the chat lively. I appreciate it, and
Yeah.
it's like I said, I do this to entertain and to
Educate.
hopefully inspire. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, tomorrow we've got the Gundam Explained show,
That's
12
right.
Eastern, 11 a.m. Central.
That's right.
Definitely tune in for that. Links down below in the description. Um, would you care to give us a little spoiler about what we might be talking about?
Um, I don't know yet.
Okay. Well,
Well,
what
actually,
year?
that's not entirely true. I
It's
have
allowed to be a
my
surprise. I mean, I
ideas.
surprised you with our topic
I
today.
know, but my surprises usually aren't that fun and interesting. It's usually just some conversation. So yeah, we'll see. Although, the Goose had that thing where you remember where we like pick 5 mobile
Yes.
suits? Maybe we come to the show tomorrow prepared with our 5 favorite.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, it was basically the challenge was like Gundam Pokemon. Like we
Yeah,
each pick 6 mobile suits and then
or
like,
6,
throw
whatever.
them out and, you know,
Yeah, and see
Zeta
yeah,
Gundam, I choose you.
that might get the chat interacting,
Yeah,
maybe,
exactly.
of what their suit they would pick.
It's super effective.
That might be a thing, yeah.
There you go.
Well, cool.
Well, yeah, definitely like I said, check out check out the links down in the description.
Yep.
New episode of Dissecting Gundam coming out Friday, and yeah, that's about all I've got.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
didn't forget
thanks a lot,
anything,
man.
did I, Adam?
No, I don't think so. I mean, just seeing what I saw, I think I'm still
Still taken aback.
yeah, that was awesome.
But yeah, well, you dropped a video today.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right, the GM Sniper Robot Spirits. So, I really like that line if you guys wanna check that out. But that does actually remind me too, the Witch for Mercury video I dropped Monday, I have, there's a giveaway for a high grade aerial kit that Bandai gave to me
Yeah,
for a giveaway. So, just comment on the video and you'll be entered in.
yeah, there you go. Free high grade aerial.
Yeah,
Sweet. Well, thank you guys again so much for watching. Adam, thank you for hanging out with me
of
today,
course.
and we'll catch you all tomorrow.
Yep, see y'all.
Cheers.